they're really not actually God sovereign and free if they're still looking for something to come and, save them or to take them away or try to escape this earth. That means you're still living in a prison mentality.
Mm.
Even though that is still what we kind of feel generally with being controlled by mandates in the government and all of these things. But, I think the more you embody higher consciousness, the more that you're able to actually create a reality and a world on this earth within all these crazy things that are happening, that you can still actually live free and liberated. It's just how hard are you going to work for it?
Hello, amazing people. How are you going? Campbell here from Spiral Up. Hope you're having a fantastic day. And today we've got another chat. We've got Indigo Angel with us to talk about what she does. And basically, she's looking into planetary grids and also a bit of history and trying to, like us all, find out the answers. So welcome, Indy. How are you going?
It's going well, Campbell. Thank you so much for inviting me on your channel. I am just so happy to be here to have this chat with you today and to talk to all of your subscribers and dive into the shenanigans with you.
Exactly. Yeah, it is clown world. So yeah, let's get into it. So you look at like planetary grid lines, like ley lines. Is that the same kind of thing? Ley lines, grid lines, song lines?
Yes, all of it.
All of it.
Planetary ley lines, soul river lines, look into things historically, look into previous root races and civilizations and continents and different timelines, organic timelines, inorganic timelines, and just try to decode the matrix system here and kind of, dive into a lot of the more unseen and hidden and occult knowledge and mysticism. And honestly, I try a lot to deconstruct a lot of the demonization and a lot of the more diabolical things that are taking place on the earth right now, because that's a part of my light work. It's a part of my humanitarianism, is to shine a light in all of these really dark places. And I do that through my grid work and through my cosmic grid updates that I do on my channel.
Cool. All right. So I just lost my question. Okay. So, when we look, I'd look into Tartaria on my other channel and a bit of history and all this kind of stuff. And we, at the old, when we look at the old civilization, it seems to be based on grid lines. There's these things called star forts. I'm not sure if you've heard of them. They seem to be on energy points. And then, so we have all this laid out system, and then people are even doing videos on what they're calling circuit board cities, because we're looking at cities and finding that they're like a microcosm of a macrocosm of a circuit board, just laid out bigger. So it looks like they were powering themselves from the grid, basically from the natural Earth grid, or at least emulating it to get the same sort of results out of it. So have you come across anything like that? I mean, obviously we have sacred sites, on lots of these points. So yeah, what's your view on that? And as far as, are they accessing energy? Is this what it's all about? Because we're told it's all like spiritual, sort of to go there and it's just these are all spiritual places and that. So do you think it's more that or more actual energy, like electricity?
Good question. That has such a dynamic and multi-universal answers for sure. Well, I think there's so much to be said in the architecture. Are you talking about specific architectural structures in Tartaria when you're talking about these star dynamic
No.
locations?
So there's that they call them forts, but there's these things all over the earth, and they call them star forts or bastion forts. And basically, when you look at them from above, they look like stars. And when we look into them, basically, it's like a cymatic pattern. So do you know what cymatics are? Where we get, you play music through, water or on plates, and you get geometric patterns forming at different frequencies. And these stars look like that's what they are, or at least that's what they're based off. And these stars are always connected to cities. Like pretty much every city on Earth, every old city sort of was a walled city. They were all walled cities and connected to these stars. So yeah, so inside the walled city is where you find the cathedrals, the domes, all these different sort of buildings, but they all have this huge star, and it's got a lot to do with water. They've always got water flowing around them. So
yeah, that's so interesting. It's kind of a perspective of it that I would definitely be learning more from you and integrating more of your perspective of that. I definitely look at things when I'm looking at the grids in terms of Stargate portals or Stargate vortexes that are encoded to specific celestial systems. So there are particular Stargate networks on the Earth that are all over the grids that are according to specific universal systems that run particular galactic timelines and galactic seedings and things like this. I also see things in terms of sacred sites and the network systems and the overlays of energy systems that are connecting either in geometric grid patterns and things like this that could be coming through something similar to what you're saying with the fractalization of maybe plasma or water within these Stargate systems. So definitely that, and then also see things in terms of energy networks according to ley lines and soul river lines and historical events and civilizational seedings. And so yeah, it's such a multitude of many different realms and worlds that I think are simultaneously existing, and we're just like tapping in and tuning into all of the dynamicness of all of it, for sure. And I really like the work you guys are doing on that. That is really interesting.
Thank you. Yeah.
With Tataria. How do you say it? Do you say the R in it?
Yeah. Well,
Tataria.
I'm Australian, so I say Tartaria. But
Okay.
in England, I think the English or from UK say Tataria. So they say, so yeah, however you want. We tend to drag words out, so Tartaria. But yeah, so that comes because it was actually a country, well, an empire called Tartaria, in the 1800s. So that's been wiped. So this is the thing, when you say multiple timelines, the more I look into this, the problem is nothing matches up. And this is why we're going down how this whole sort of topic, gain traction, is everything we look into as far as what we're told in the history books and all this kind of stuff. You then look at it in the physical world, and it doesn't match up. And then also, if you go back to older books, it doesn't even match up with what we're told now. And there's all these, of course, it could just be, the controllers rewriting books, playing around with dates, all this kind of stuff. But I think, the last year or two, there's definitely something going on with time. The Mandela effect, that sort of popped its head up, a few years ago. And I've got a friend who basically says that we've been looped back from 2022. We got looped back to 2017 to do it all again, basically, because she says because not enough people got out. So what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Timeline. So what?
I think.
Yeah, go.
I think timelines are definitely simultaneously existing. I think when we come into specific planetary alignments and stellar alignments and certain gate systems open, that new timelines reactivate and reawaken and coexist and infuse into the current timelines as well. One thing that I was kind of preparing to talk about as I was like just gathering my notes up to come on the show with you Was talking about a lot of Mu and the motherlands and the Lemurian timelines, because I think it's so pertinent and so relative to Australian grids and also, Australian history, Australian culture, the Anangu people, Uluru and all of the, energy transformations that come from that. I feel like it's a Stargate portal. It's like a 13-dimensional mother gate system that brings in so much cosmic energy, planetary healing energy that rides a lot of angular ley lines globally all over the earth and feeds us a lot of information of technology and just planetary healing, humanitarian healing, human biological healing. And so it's such a multitude of things that are transmitting through all of these different, simultaneously existing timelines. And Lemuria comes through a lot of those angular timelines and comes through even different angular tilts and equatorial tilts in the Earth's planes, because a lot of the continental landmass that came from Lemuria has sunk and has now reintegrated into bottom of the Pacific, or also kind of slowed its skin back in through that Ouroboros nature of our planet, and even exist in the Agartha and the inner Earth worlds and realms and stuff like this. So I think we are just kind of filtering through those holograms of simultaneously existing timelines to experience them as particular timeline markers in our own biology and our own genetics wake up to particular, aspects of our own ascension, and also, what we're shifting into in terms of the future root race as well. And so I think we're integrating a lot of information from everything that we are, and we're just coming online in terms of our total planetary history, our total Akashic field of memory. And so the more our consciousness expands, the more we can integrate more of that information. But I think for us who are like the decoders, I heard you saying that you guys were like hunters. You were like, I like to call myself a grid hunter too, because we're trying to kind of like plug back in those pieces. Like, how does this make sense? How does this it's like a puzzle. Like we want to figure out, we want the timelines to make sense. We want and we're trying to kind of see things on this linear spectrum, at least for me, because I'm looking at Tartaria and I'm like, okay, I'm looking at here's Mu, here's Lemuria, here's Atlantis. Okay, where was Tartaria? Was this between Atlantis and Lemuria? Was this, it sounds like it's more almost Aryan, like it's into the Aryan systems, if it's in the 1800s and things like this. So, and it's just like, well, how could an entire piece of a chunk of something just be eradicated or wiped off from the Aryan timeline? Like that's actually really relative, so it's really interesting to me that all of this is coming up, and it's exciting.
Yeah. When you say Aryan, are you talking is that Nordic Scandinavian people heritage?
Yeah, Indo-Europe, Indo-European, also Indian Rishi. I believe that Indian Rishis were the first original Aryans.
Yeah, because they're the blue-eyed ones, right? Because in northern India you get the blue-eyed, lighter skinned ones, and across all of northern Europe, really. Italy, everywhere they have these, it's almost like they have north and south people, isn't it? It's really bizarre. Because have you, just as a side note, have you come across?
Yeah, even Germanic.
Yeah, the whole region. Have you come across the Oeralinda book? OERA Linda book?
I haven't heard of it.
That's interesting. That talks about Atlantis, but it's basically a book that's supposed to be rewritten or collected in the 1300s, and it's they talk about the Frisians or the Frisians, which is, it's a whole nother story. But basically, yeah, they say it's the history of the white-skinned, blue-eyed people who sort of came from the north and came, yeah. So that might be something that sort of helps with your research. So you said all these ley lines and everything and the connections. Was that Australia or Mu that all the knowledge and that you were talking about, everything sort of connects in?
Well, I think it starts with Mu. It starts with the motherlands, because there was a giant continent in the Pacific Ocean. I think I sent you a picture of it
Yeah.
on the email if you feel like pulling it up. I studied a lot of James Churchward's work. He put out, he's put out a ton of books studying the continent of Mu. It was like the only place I could really find a lot of information on it, because he's, really dug into the Nakal tablets, which I think is like some of only the original stuff left from the motherlands of Mu that were found in India. The Nakal people, I think, actually went either into Australia and crossed through Kandam Kumari, which was another land bridge of Lemuria that connected to Madagascar and also to the tip of India. And so I think a lot of that information was displaced to India, and then that was like more decoded there in terms of the Nakal tablets, which were the native people of Mu. And so Mu existed, I think, about, it was like 50 to 200,000 years ago. And I like to put it in that time reference, because in a lot of James Churchward's books, he talks about 50,000 years ago. But I feel that this goes back deeper, because when I start diving into galactic origins and, galactic nations that came in and seeded, I mean, it really ties into the Draco and the Hydra systems. And those go back, 200, 500,000 years. And between 200,000 years and 50,000 years ago, I mean, there was like supposedly like 6 million people on the motherland of Mu. And so the continent, I guess, slowly started sinking into the Pacific. And then those people were kind of displaced to all of the surrounding countries. They went into North America. So you hear about, the native and indigenous tribes and, Native Americans, these were some of the original Lemurian people. And you look at the Mayans, so they went into South America. The Mayans were Lemurian people, and then they also went into Australia. And so the native indigenous of Australia would be, descendants from Mu. They would be the Lemurian people. And and then you have the Pleiadian systems come in around that time, and they seeded into the 24 chromosomes of those indigenous people. And then they came with the purity of the 23rd strand, and they basically, this was how the Pleiadian seeding began, was in Lemuria and really in Australia. Like a lot of things comes from Australia. Australia is really like, this is why I love talking about it. And I've never been there. But it's fascinating. It's fascinating to me because it's just such a spiritual land. The people are very spiritual. They're very connected to the fourth strand of the DNA. And there's so much going on there, right now globally in terms of current events. I mean, what you guys have going on there. I mean, the whole world's really been watching you guys, and it's amazing.
It's been crazy now though, like the last week or so, it's been really good. But yeah, Australia is a crazy land. Like, do you have any thoughts on what happened to Australia? Like the interior of Australia, and it's not just the interior, it's literally 80% of the continent is just desert's been wiped out, red sand, apparently. Who knows, right? Because that's what they tell us, so no one goes out there. Who knows? There could be crystal cities out there, right?
Well, that's why this whole thing has really caught my attention. When you sent me some of this stuff, I'm like, wow, okay, like I have like my brain's like going in all these different directions, because I'm just like, I feel that it starts in Lemuria, because there was a takeover of a dark priesthood that came in, the dark brotherhoods, the dark pharaonic brotherhoods, the dark squiddy brotherhoods is what I like to call them. And, they came in and, the same things that are happening now, sterilization programs, forced breeding programs, all of these, psychotronic, spiritual warfare, biological warfare. I feel that there was like a nuclear war that happened there. Because if you look at the land of Australia, it literally looks like it was nuclear warfare, like, you know, because you have only, you know, the outskirts of it that are like livable or inhabitable. But it's really interesting because right in the center of it, you have Uluru. And okay, so this is a very organic, I like to call it a Stargate. And I almost wonder sometimes when I look at it, if it didn't used to be like an ancient grandmother tree, because it's kind of like a rock that's just like, you know, cut off at the top. And like, and if you look at all of these other structures that are similar to that, like the Devil's Tower in the United States, it's the same thing. It looks like a tree trunk almost. And I've been kind of watching some things on it that, you know, these could have been ancient grandmother trees with
Yeah,
deep root systems that go deep into the ground.
which
Yeah,
could,
you've heard about some of this
could
stuff.
be the tunnels. Yeah, yeah. Have you seen the video? What's it called? There are no trees on a flat Earth, I think it's called. There's also an EWA thing where they go into the trees, because these things are everywhere. These plateaus, you know, they tell us they're plateaus. But we've got shots of, you know, plateaus, and you can see the tree rings in them. Like you can literally still see the tree rings. And in some of the books, as you probably know, we've lost about 500 books from the Bible. And in that, there was a book that says that the angels cut down the giant trees, basically to stop the Nephilim being able to climb them and get away from the flood, is what it says. So yeah, we've got this ancient tree thing, and then we've got all these tunnels underground. So are they the root systems of these trees? Because of course that's where we find gold and minerals, and we know that trees pull those up from the ground. So, you know, and then, you know, where does that fit into the storyline? This is the thing. The more we find out, that the more timelines we get, and the harder it is to fit it all in together. So do you see Mu as being the sort of original seeding civilization where everything sort of came from? Is that what Mu was?
As far back as I've researched, yes. If there's something that goes back farther than that, I'm unaware of it. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the heart of, I think, as far back as galactic history and human seedings go back as far as I know of.
So,
Um,
and then that was a
yeah.
human race of people in Mu, like that. So that was the start of the humans, basically.
Yeah, I think more existences prior to that were more like etheric beings coming here, like the Polarians or the Hyperboreans. I was even, you know, looking into some of the Breatharians and things like this, that they existed in, you know, different form here in a more androgynous state, a lot bigger, you know, have
Yeah.
crystal pineals, things like that.
That's what we see in the old architecture too, is giant architecture, doorways that are, you know, 20 foot tall and bigger. You know, the cathedrals are they're just built for giants. They're just oversized buildings. So we definitely were bigger at some point. And the other thing about Tartaria is there's a lack of toilets and bathrooms in all these buildings. You know, so we don't know if that's because they're all machines, or if, you know, some people say, well, they breatharians. So, you know, again, it's so hard to put this timeline together, isn't it? So you would see it as Mu, and then it sinks, and then Atlantis, was that like a name for, because a lot of people think Atlantis was an island that sunk, obviously coming from Plato. So do you see it as an island or as a civilization, an earthwide civilization?
I've actually done a lot of research on this and I've looked into Plato's account of it. Based upon his description, I've really kind of tuned into the Eye of Sahara, because he talks about concentric circles circles, you know, filled with or concentric land filled with like water around it and things like this. And if you kind of tune into the area of the Eye of Sahara and actually look at it geographically, like I'll often get on my maps and kind of just like hover over, it actually looks like the entire continental shelf of West Africa slopes down from the Eye of Sahara. And then right above it, there's actually like a meteorite impact. So it's kind of, it just, the description of everything that Plato speaks of, the Eye of Sahara really fits that. And so I've always kind of looked at it that that was a very strong potential for Atlantis. In terms of, I think the Canary Islands, or even north of the Canary Islands, that there could have been an island there that possibly had sank as well in the Atlantic Ocean. But to me, it just doesn't fit as much as the Eye of Sahara does when you really start looking in and diving into the research on that. I think Atlantis, though, was not just one specific place. I think that's kind of like the dream of it. But I think it was, you know, like a timeline that kind of existed all over the world, similarly to the way Lemuria was. Like when I used to think about Lemuria, I used to think like Lemuria was this one place. And then the more you dive into it, you realize it's all over. It's all over the world. So it's interesting with that, I guess. A lot of people see the Bermuda Triangle as well, having to do with Atlantis, and also I believe like down in Cuba, there's like a lot of sunken and mystical findings under this ocean and down in like Cuba area and stuff like this. And I'm thinking, you know, if that continental shelf was impacted by a meteorite and they had geological great upheaval and everything kind of sunk off or sloped down into the Atlantic Ocean, and then over time, things may have, you know, made its way over to the Bermuda Triangle. A lot of people are looking for the 13 original crystal skulls of Atlantis, and that these sit, you know, down underneath the Bermuda Triangle, and that's why there's so much energy that's, you know, pulling things. But I really think it's a vortex system. It's the same as the planetary, you know, grid lines, and we're looking at energy centers and things. I think the Bermuda is I honestly, because I'm I'm always looking at things like, what are they tampering in the Earth's grids? You know, I see it as like it's a decoy location for Atlantis to kind of pull people away from where the original things actually happened, because they don't really want us to tune into the Eye of Sahara. You know, the Eye of Sahara is completely deserted. You know, no one's allowed to like really go there and excavate it or even like look at it. Like nobody's excavated it. You know, you can barely go in and research there because they have, you know, disease-ridden flies and things. Like you'll get, you know, it's actually hard to go there. I've looked into it because I wanted to go there.
Yeah, they do that everywhere though, right? You can't go there, you'll die. So come and let us put something in your arm. Yeah, I mean, these timelines.
I guess there's a temple of Poseidon. There's a temple of Poseidon, I guess, there. Outside the gates of the Eye of Sahara, there's a temple of Poseidon, and yeah.
Ocean as well. Because have you seen the maps? There's maps from the 1400s. There's one, I think it's 1450 something, and it shows Africa and the top of it, and it's completely like lush. It's covered in cities. There's rivers everywhere. Road, like the whole thing, complete. And it's like Australia right now. It's like it's just a big, you know, it's been wiped out by something. It's just a big desert. But if you look at it, there's actually remnants everywhere of these old, you know, castles poking up through the sand in the Sahara. So I mean, that could have been like a major sort of point for a bigger civilization, couldn't it? There's also an island called Frisia. Have you heard of Frisia or Frisland? That's an island up again in these old maps, but it appears and disappears. That we've got these, you know, we call them phantom islands, and depending on the map, they'll either be there or they won't, and you know, they pop up and disappear and all these things. And the Orelinda book says that Frisia sank, you know, and the same kind of thing as Atlantis. They all had to take off and do these things, but that's up in these old maps that show Frisia, they show Hyperborea as well. The four land masses, with Mount Meru in the middle. And you mentioned the Hyperboreans before. So all these old maps of Earth is another thing. They don't seem to make sense. I'm just wondering if they're a lot older than we're told. I think maybe, they say, oh, it's 600 years old, but it's probably because we're going into, the new age, right? Age of Aquarius. Obviously, you've heard about all this. And so the ages are 2,160 years. So is this all from the last age, a lot of this information we've been getting? Because clearly for a while we've been ruled by people who are lying to us, right? And hiding the history. What do you thought, like, just what are your thoughts on that? Do you think a lot of the stuff we get could actually just be from a previous civilization and we're told that it's, from our civilization?
Well, I can tell you, I started to really tune into Nostradamus's energy psychically, and just as like a connection. And I kept getting the messages from him that I needed to study old maps. I needed to get maps from like the 1500s, the 1600s. I needed to start looking at historically all of the maps that existed before. And you notice how maps now to this day, they're just like super rigid. It's just like, it's the same map, and it's all straight lines, and it's all perfectly, and when it's how they want us to see the world. And it's just absolutely not true. And when you look at like ley lines and stuff, and how we have everything coordinated, on these degree systems and stuff, but that's not even the natural formations of ley lines. They're actually more like tree branches and the natural energetic structures. So yeah, absolutely. I think we're just getting more and more disconnected, and more pulled into the inorganic timelines and perceptions of the world.
Yeah.
And it's
the inversion of it all.
So it's
if you need maps, I can send you maps. I've got lots of maps. So okay, here's a good point to ask you this. What do you think the Earth is? What do you think the shape of the Earth is? Because clearly they're not telling us, right?
Well, I guess my insight isn't too deep in terms of flat Earth stuff and things like that. I honestly don't know. I don't know.
I know, it's just if you look at the path of Venus, I think it is, pretty sure, on a flat Earth map, it makes like a flower of life in its course. So there's some interesting things, but like you said, all the maps are wrong. All the old maps show Hyperborea, which is extra land that if we're on a ball can't be there. It just can't be there. And I've got maps I can send you that show land on the outside as well, and show Antarctica as no ice, because at the tip of South America, there's a big chunk of land and they call it Tierra del Fuego, which means the land of fire, right next to Antarctica. Why would they call it the land of fire? So there's all these weird things. And of course, down there we have Patagonia and the Patagonian giants. I'm not sure if you've heard of those. There was a giant race of people down there, talked about by Makeda and all these different people. So there's all this stuff, but I mean, in the end, is it just a projection? Is this all just AI, right? Is this a projection thing? Are we just in here, which, if that's the truth, it would make trying to find a physical 3D timeline kind of hard, wouldn't it? Because we've been taught everything's linear, 3D, and we're going back going, hang on, this doesn't make sense. Is that because it's not linear? Everything's everywhere. Everything's now.
I think it's I think it's that nothing is linear, and everything is simultaneous, and everything is multidimensional, and everything is everything that we can perceive it as, to our greatest infinite spectrum of our imagination and our intuition. And I think you can dream awake anything into existence on this earth and make it real. And it's more wonderful and more magnificent than we even realize, but we're just getting caught up in the illusion of limitation. And I mean, in terms of Antarctica and all of that, I think you're absolutely right. Like, we've never been to Antarctica. I mean, we're told it's off limits. We're told it's, a frozen Iceland, but I mean, you hear about all of the experimentation that's going on down there. We have no idea what's really going on down there, but you hear about all of this, mad scientists down there drilling down into the ice and creating, dew weaponry and laser technologies that they can set off the La Palma volcano from the specific location. I guess the earthquake that went off in,
Yeah, no,
was it Melbourne?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was supposedly set off by this technology that they have, I guess this neutrino technology where they're messing with the, first spectrums of light rays of creation and, with CERN and all of these things. So, I mean, it's definitely concerning, trying to keep ourselves 10 steps ahead of what these advanced technologies, advanced artificial intelligences are doing. And I really realized this the other day. It just like hit me on the head yesterday when I was looking at what's going on in Australia. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is total artificial intelligence takeover, because I think they said Google's investing $1 billion into, I wrote it down. It was, they're investing into, or Google investments in Australia of $1 billion over 5 years. It's the biggest commitment they've ever made in any country whatsoever. And it is to start the Digital Future Initiative. And they're actually creating now the cloud, they're creating the AI. Everything's going down in Australia. The focus of building the foundation of the digital economy is going down in Australia. Like, this is where it's all going to take off. And I'm like, that's why they cracked down so hard there, with the forced mandates, because it's like they're going to plug everyone into the cloud there first. They're going to launch AI there first. Zuckerberg's metaverse, they're going to launch it down in AU first. I mean, it makes total sense why they're doing this with the AUKUS, with the submarine deals that they have going on. Getting nuclear submarines and reversing deals that they had with France, pulling out of that and trying to team up with the US. And they're trying to create all these secured networks because they're trying to like battle China. And, what if something happens? There's something going on with China and Taiwan. And I don't know, it's just so the centralized focus of everything right now is Australia when it comes to US Navy military advancements and also artificial intelligence advancements. Everything's going there like right now.
Well,
and
we have Pine Gap.
Yeah, Pine Gap.
So,
Area 52.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows what's going on there? And it does seem like we're reliving this. We've got the story of the fallen angels and all this kind of stuff and messing with genetics. And we've got, if you go back, this is why the timeline doesn't make sense, because then if you go back, like, again, to the 1400s, 1500s, it shows all these creatures, that cryptoids, right? All these strange humanoid, basically genetically modified creatures. And that's, of course, what they're doing again at the moment, is they're messing with DNA. So, who knows? Is that because Australia's, were we the first place seeded after Mu, or are we just close to Antarctica? But there's something going on, because we have a lot of celebs moving down here as well. They're all moving into Byron Bay.
I think the global elites live in Australia. I think the global elites are there.
This is the thing.
I think they're in Canberra and they're in New Zealand.
I'm in Perth. So I'm on the West Coast, and we haven't even been locked down here. But back in the 80s, Perth was full of just these criminal millionaires, basically. Everyone in, half of Perth were millionaires, but they were all criminals, and they all fell, by the end of the 80s. They all got busted in the whole economy, because Perth was just so rich back then, and then it just all died. But back then, yeah, it was said that all the elites were buying up land and down south and in a place called Margaret River, and they were all living there. So I wonder if this is, that they're here and that's why we're not locked down, because they don't want to be their man, they just they don't want to be locked down, right? So I'm wondering if this is a safe space, but the East Coast and the rest of it didn't fare so well. Because but the thing is, it's like you said, if we keep focusing on this, we're just helping them create the reality, right? I think we're at a point where we can understand that what's going on, and we don't really need to know that story anymore. We need to sort of focus on where we want to go now, because, if we're looking into the past and all this stuff, I think if anything, it's apparent that, it doesn't make sense, right? The only thing that makes sense is that everything is perception and we create it all. I mean, that's really the only thing that makes sense. And because if that's true, then the past can be malleable, right? The past can change due to perceptions and due to the whole world's perception. Look at World War II. They say, oh, this symbol, right, swastika, now means evil, but before then it was good luck and prosperity. So it's all to do with, our perception, I think. What do you think about that? Like, are we creating reality as we go forward?
I think we are, but I think there's also programming and like subliminal programming that is being inducted, being MK Ultra into society. Everyone is MK Ultra to a degree. Some are victimized more than others, and so it's difficult because there's so much tampering that's going on. There's so much. I think the past does matter on some level. We have to understand our history, and I think that's why Mu and the Motherlands and Lemuria is important, because that is the connection to our organic, nature. Like we aren't AI, we are not cyborgs. Like, having this electronic device in my hand all day long actually is not good for me. Like, it's actually makes me feel sick the more that I hold it. And I have, symptoms that come from that, and things like that. So I think we have to look at what we're becoming. What do we want to become? Do we want to become, we got to think about the future of our children and the biobot bodies we're going to incarnate into. We're not going to be even incarnate into organic bodies next time around. We're going to be being uploaded into the cloud, and we're going to have living in a eternal virtual reality. I mean, so we got to be able to look at what the dark brotherhoods are here doing. We have to look at our systems that already exist. We have to look at, everything has to change from within. We have to look at what the Vatican's doing. We have to look at what the secret societies are doing, what our political systems are doing, all of that. I was just talking about this the other day, has to be reformed from within those systems. And I think we are very far from that actually happening. Because people always ask me, like, when are things going to change? When are things going to get better? When people are ready to fight for things to get better, when they're ready to fight for the light, when they're ready to actually, if you're just going along with the agenda, you don't want to, lose your job or whatever. So you want to go get, Jim Jones Juice Love Booster number 9, there's going to be consequences for that. And it's going to play out in our reproduction, on our future race of our children. And so, I mean, there's so many battles going on right now. And you can see just in this conversation we're having, we're just like jumping timelines and, trying to make it all make sense.
Let's just say, we're going to have to do a part 2, like, just to try and bring it all together.
Yeah, but I mean, we can't sit back and not use our voices. We can't be afraid, we have to stick to what we believe in our gnosis and our intuition and our organic consciousness. We can't lose our connection to nature. I mean, and they're pushing that agenda so hard. The propaganda is so hard. I
Mm.
mean, they're just snatching up our children. I mean, this 5'11" I call it nursery rhyme crimes. Um, they're giving the Jim Jones booster to our children now. This is soul harvesting. This is ritualizing
Mm.
our children. And they trick you into accepting it. They groom you into accepting it.
Yeah.
And and it's not okay.
No, and that's the problem. It seems so unfair, like because we just born, into this world, and then from day dot we're programmed, and for 20 years basically, and you come out the end not knowing what's going on. So, a lot of people, you can't really blame them for not seeing anything. They're just running a program. That's all they know. And then there's are they people, the whole NPC thing. So with this, great awakening, do you see, you sort of said, it's going to depend on, obviously critical mass when people wake up and start actually changing and building the new world. That's when we see it. Do you see, I'll ask you this question. Have you heard this? All these, remote viewers and mediums have all started talking about spaceships coming and picking people up. Have you heard this narrative? It suddenly popped up about a month ago, and everyone started saying it. All these different people started saying it. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, are some people going to, ascend, and others stay down? Like, what are your thoughts on that? The whole split kind of thing.
I mean, sure, spaceships might come and pick people up, but I think everyone's experiencing an ascension in a different ways. For some people, it's more extraterrestrial and it's more celestial, and for some, it's more organic and it's more earth-based, and for some, it's just more about information and consciousness expansion, and being able to have the capacity to see many, many things in many realms and juggle many things and be accelerated off of their manifestation. It's so different for every single person. If I do feel like if you think ships are coming to pick you up, I mean, this was something I did talk about on my channel, is on some level, the Galactic Federation, on some level, these types of consciousness fields, you have to be careful within those, because there's still this Christian-based belief system that kind of extends itself into those consciousness fields, where people feel that like a savior is coming to come save them, or and I think it kind of takes our power away when we push those narratives, because it really comes back down to the crucifixion wounds that people are still carrying, that they're unconscious of. And this comes from the victors of Christ and goes back to the Vatican and all of these things, that they're really not actually God sovereign and free if they're still looking for something to come and save them, or to take them away, or try to escape this earth. That means you're still living in a prison mentality. Even though that is still what we kind of feel generally with being controlled by mandates in the government and all of these things. But, I think the more you embody higher consciousness, the more that you're able to actually create a reality in a world on this earth within all these crazy things that are happening, that you can still actually live free and liberated. It's just, how hard are you going to work for it? That's just how I see it.
Yeah, no, I agree. This whole sitting around waiting for, whatever, the second coming, the aliens, number 17. Great if they turn up, awesome, right? Great. But if they don't, there's a problem if you're sitting on your butt. So, we've definitely all got to get up and start doing things. And I think a big thing at the moment is, stop focusing on the narrative, right? And all this stuff, because I think that just helps us create, what they want. And at the end of the day, I think that's what awakening is, right? It's sort of waking up from the program and the spell, and realizing all the deception and all this other kind of stuff, and going and doing something different. Because It's interesting, you know, that if you've taken, you know, the jungle juice, then you you've given up all sovereignty, haven't you? You don't believe that that you're created. Clearly, these people are like, oh, I'm under man's law, I'm under man's rule, not the creators. So, I mean, that's not got to be
Yeah.
good for. I mean, this is why it seems like there's going to be some kind of split. And I mean, I don't know, is that going to be just in a physical way? Are we going to be out in nature, in, you know, communities, and there's going to be these big sort of cities full of, you know, cyborgs, basically? Um, I guess we don't know in the end, do we? We've just got to go forward and create it.
I think you're right
Time.
with this. I think you're right with the splitting. I think there's going to be so much splitting, multiple splits of people pulling away from systems, going back into more tribal-based communities, or just communities of people that are actually serving and helping each other within like a you know, with like a same mind frame of existence, and finding ways to kind of exist more off grid. I mean, I was talking to some people that were in Australia, and it was a gal the other day, and she says she's already seen that in her community. They're actually forming communities of people that are the organics. I call the ones who haven't taken the elixir the organics, and the inorganics, because, you know,
Mm.
the inorganics are already, you know, got
Not
the
quite
squiddy
organic.
stuff going. They got the squiddy stuff going on, but
Mm.
yeah, but you know, they're forming these communities of, you know, support and things like that. So I think we're just going to see more, unfortunately, more fractalization and segregation on some level. And you know, why people try to figure out this time in our existence. I think ultimately we all want to come back to a more unified reality. But we have some big battles ahead of us. And I think we can't like just decide that we're just going to tune out and we're going to be, you know, oh, we're just going to be love and lighters, everything's okay, and ignore the problems, or just like cognitively just become dissonant and just like, you know, whatever it is, like we have to stay informed and educated, and you know, just keep pushing forward. I mean, it's tough love right now.
Mm.
It's tough love. That's just what that's what it is, unfortunately. Like there's no answer for anyone right now to, other than just, if you want something different, like you have to just dig deep inside yourself and align yourself to your soul mission, your soul purpose, what you came here to do, and get yourself in a position that these things don't directly, you know, affect your reality
Mm.
anymore, you know, and just live as sovereign as you can. And you're right, it's really sad. These people they haven't embodied themselves as a creator.
Mm.
They're still existing under so many implants, you know, J seals, Atlantean seals, Draco seals. I talk about seals on my channel a lot. They're existing under, you know, lots of etheric implants, consciousness caps. You know, they haven't hit their time markers in terms of their genetic ascension. You know, and they might not be set to do that for another 200 years or so. You know, they're still under a lot of ancestral karma. They're trying to clear out, you know, a lot of suffering, a lot of trauma from this life, past lives. There's so, I mean, and everybody's blueprint is so completely unique. You know, everybody is, I mean, really every single person on this earth is not like the other person. You know, it's just so different. And I think that's why so many different things are simultaneously existing, is because we are all infinitely universally minded, and we are our own galaxy system and our own minds and hearts and
Mm.
portal systems, and we're all like anchoring that here in different ways.
Yeah,
But that's the fun of Earth, honestly. I mean, Earth's actually a fun place. I mean,
I agree.
I tell people I want to incarnate for another 200 years. I'm not done. I got things going on here. You know I'm going to kind of like pick up where I left off, and things are going to come to me a lot faster next time. And I'm just going to, I got things to do, you know?
As long as the control system's gone, I'm getting a bit tired. But I mean, that's the thing. There is so much
Oh
there
yeah,
here.
for sure.
and it's our choice, isn't it? Because even at the moment, I know several people who have traveled internationally, like in the last month, no problems at all. They haven't had any of the jungle juice or anything, so they just go and do what they want. They're just doing it, while most people are sitting down going, "Oh, you can't do that." No, you can't, because they said, no travel. But that's the choice, right? You can say, "Oh, well, I'm not allowed to," or you can go, "I am allowed to," so I'm just going to do it. And you just find a way, right? You just find a way. You create your own reality rather than, this is the thing. If we're running the program, that's why we're creating their reality. That's the sort of the perfect example. If they say you can't go outside and you go, "Oh, okay, I'm going to stay inside." Well, literally, you just created the world they want. Everyone's locked inside. So, and I was talking to someone else about, what did she call it? Righteous anger. And you sort of touched on that a bit. We've got to really start standing up a bit, I think, and standing in our power. There's this conception that, spiritual people are just, they're so nice and they've got no reactions and they just sit on cushions all day and everything's love. And but what I'd say about that, if we've had that pumped at us and we've had all these spiritual teachers and leaders 50 years at least, as far as being marketed, but the world's got worse. Like, if that works, where's the results?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So I think that's a bit of a
I think
scam.
it's about it's more about getting your hands dirty right now. Like, people got to get their hands dirty. They got to want something different, and they got to work for it. I mean, we've gotten so lazy, by not realizing that everything that's ever really actually been built has been built off of warfare, and all kinds of just crazy stuff that we forget to look at and acknowledge that freedom isn't given. You have to fight for it, you
Mm.
know? So it's, yeah,
Some it's
it's,
also not easy. It's like freedom means you have to let other people be free, literally, to the point that if they want to go and follow the mandates, well, that's their choice. And you've just got to go, okay, well, I'm going this way, have fun. You know, yeah, we've got to let all this fighting and reeing and screaming that's going on. It's just such a waste of time and energy. And that's what the system is. It wastes energy. Everything. There's just so much waste in everything. So we can do it so much better. We really can. We can look at this as a bad thing or as something to, kick us in the butt and saying, time to get going, right? Time to get moving, get out there. Don't sit there and say, "Oh, I wish this was different." Get out there and make it different. That's how we change, and that's what the new earth is, right? Is when we all just go, "Bugger it, let's go and live the way we want to live and build societies that are, for humans, right? Rather than for corporations and the machine."
well, I think that's the thing too. It's like getting people educated. Um, clearly we have our education system that's just a brainwashing program. People aren't getting the real education. Getting people to look at the things that need to be looked at, like looking at what the Vatican's up to, understanding. I mean, I go back to the Vatican because I just have done so many updates on that, but they're really connected to so much in terms of the global webbing technologies, in terms of black spiral stargates and negative energies, and everything that's going on with child sacrificing. And the Pope was just literally barred from Canada of international peace laws and things like this. Like, they don't, like, the Indigenous do not want him on their lands. They found all kinds of graves of Indigenous children in these Roman or these Catholic churches. And it's the Indigenous that are still standing here fighting a lot of the evils. And I mean, why don't we team up with the Indigenous and like get on the same team here, because they seem to be the ones that are actually looking at the corruption and being like, we're not going to put up with it anymore.
Mm.
You know, so I mean, it's just everything has to be looked at, and we have to observe it, and we also have to heal our traumas. We have to really heal things on a subconscious level. I mean, some of these updates I've done on cosmic grid updates, I did one on the US called Bleeding Grids, you know, and I was looking a lot at specific spheres or cell grids that were in descending cycles, you know, where they're having like high homeless rates, high murder rates, like, you know, California is a huge one. It's literally considered Malibu Beach and LA and Skid Row. I mean, these are harvesting places where they're harvesting souls, they're harvesting loosh. These are hard grids. And they feed into wormhole systems that actually go across the entire United States over into the Bermuda Triangle. There's actual wormholes. That's why I thought it was like an Atlantis decoy locations, because you know, it's pulling a lot of negative energy and feeding all of those soul harvesting. And, you know, we have to look at our communities. We have to really kind of be aware. I mean, even in AU, you have, the update I was doing is calling it prison colonies, you know, because you have that trauma, that prison trauma, you know, that is an underlying aspect of your shared subconscious experience that may be what is leading to submission and fear and doubt and not being able to use your voice or, you know, create the world you want to create. And so all those things have to be observed, acknowledged, dealt with on so many levels of our generations of our karma. And it requires people to open up those parts of our energy field where those memories exist and dig deep inside yourself. But this isn't the stuff they're teaching in schools. They're not teaching kids how to go inside themselves and care about their emotions and their feelings and the things that actually connect us on a soul level. Like,
You're not allowed to think about that.
we just,
That's just fairy tales. Come on. You know,
yeah.
like you turn up to school and it's like they make you kill your imaginary friend, you know. No imaginary friends here, sorry. They got to go. No imagination, right? Now you're wrong because you don't think like me. So you're wrong. I mean, it's just such bad, and it's all against the right side of the brain, right? Creativity and the connection to source, you know, everything. You know, the fifth element, I sort of call it, you know, everything that's you know, mystical or whatever we're told is either for kids or it's just for stupid, crazy people, and you shouldn't go there. But I think we're finding out that that's actually where the truth is, and everything that we're told, you know, everything that's just physical is actually the lie. So we've got to really change the way that we're looking at things, you know. And I guess it's what they say, right? When you change the way you look at things, what you're looking at changes. So it's breaking the spell. That's where we are. But what a time to be alive, hey?
Well, that's what's so amazing about what we're doing. Like, with, you know, having a YouTube channel, like it might seem like a small thing, but we are contributing to getting information out there. It's a way for us to use our voices. It's a way for us to share and help expand consciousness. So, I mean, it's just, you know, one thing that we can do that leads to greater things. And yeah, so I mean, it really is our service. It really is our service. But unfortunately, we're still under big tech giants. You know, YouTube is it's a big tech handler. It's an AI handler, you know, so it's like we're still dismantling all of these
Careful.
matrix programs that are still running.
They are.
I think it's a collective matrix program. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely, and it's all trauma based, like you said. That's why we have wars and all this kind of stuff, and schools and discipline and all this, you know, kind of crap. But yeah, I think, you know, that's the whole. We seem to keep coming back to it's all us, right? It's up to us. We can believe the story, or we can create our own. So yes, and we've covered lots of topics, and like you said, we've been all over the place. So it'd be, yeah, good to get you back on, and maybe we'll sort of focus on one topic and see if we can get through that. So yeah, now you've got a YouTube channel, Indigo Angel. Is that it's called Indigo Angel? Yep.
Yep,
And
Indigo Angel on
a
YouTube.
website as well.
Yeah, you can find me at indigoangel222.com. I have a list of services there. I do starseed origin readings. I do JCL removals. I do deep chakra clearings, 13-dimensional chakra clearings, and I do advanced avatar master practices where we dive into advanced energy mechanics and do a lot of interactive energy work to help get people open up in all kinds of different ways to get their etheric body moving, their astral body moving, get them, embracing more levels of telepathy.
Cool. And are these courses or are these sessions like done online, are they?
Uh-huh. These are personal sessions that I do. And if you'd like to, I also do a Patreon, so patreon.com/Indigo Angel. And I've been doing a once a month group grid healing session on my Patreon. I have one coming up in a couple days, actually. So if anyone wants to join me for that, it's a lot of fun. Last time we did spend a lot of time on the Vatican, particularly. Clearing the energy there. Had a lot of light language channelers that came through and we're clearing a lot of energy. And I like people though in that group session to really try to use their words in terms of like remote viewing and what they're seeing. So I want to try to work more towards getting people to be able to express what they're seeing verbally. I feel like there's just a lot of clarity and also more empowerment when you can kind of anchor in and master what you're seeing etherically. And so, yeah, do a lot of fun stuff. Yeah.
Should have gone and checked. I haven't been onto your
Good
website.
time.
I should have been there. Yeah, I'd actually like to dive into that kind of stuff too. So yeah, maybe we'll get you back if you've got some time in a few weeks and talk about this whole energy clearing thing, because it's a big thing at the moment, isn't it? Everyone talks about shadow work and dropping the baggage and lightening the heart and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, that sounds interesting. I might have to go and check out some of your services myself, see what you do there.
Yeah, I'd love to. It'd be so much fun.
Yeah. Well,
my chakra clearing is really good.
Is that a good one? Well, maybe we could do something and then come back and talk about it. And come back.
Yeah, definitely. Or we could record it and share it with everyone.
Yeah, well, if we can do that as well. I'm not even sure what it's about, but yeah, if that's a possibility, because I think this, like I said, information needs to get out as far as videos. But I think just putting this stuff out, it's more than just the people who see it. I think it's speaking to the ether as well. Like, so the more people that are putting this sort of stuff online, it's making it more accessible, shall we say, to people. It's breaking down their blocks so that when they see it, they're not like crazy people. They're like, oh, what is that? And then slowly, we change mindset. So that sounds like that would be interesting. All right, we'll set that up then, and come back and do a live chakra clearing.
Yeah, that would be so much fun.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I would love that.
All right. We'll hook it up then. All righty. So, yeah. Well, thanks for spending some time with us today, and yeah, thanks. We'll definitely get you back, and we'll do a live chakra clearing and show everyone what goes on and what you do, and yeah. And of course, guys, the links are below if you want to go check this out yourself as well. Go to the website and see what all the different services she does, and also, of course, go and check out her YouTube. Give her a subscribe, a like, all that kind of stuff. Share it around if you think that it's helpful to other people. So thanks for joining us today, guys. Hope you found that helpful. It was a bit all over the place, but I think it was just lots of information, but we'll definitely get Indy back and sort of hone in on that. So thanks for joining us, Indy.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure and hope to be back soon.
Awesome. We'll definitely get you back soon. All right. And everyone out there, have an amazing day. And remember that there is a greatness in you. And I'll talk to you all on the next upload. Bye for now.